All right, you all are going to want to hear about the most important book I've ever read because this is something I used to say to clients when I was working as a psychotherapist and I was transitioning into like doing more of the type of coaching that I do now. I used to say to my psychotherapy clients, I used to say, "All right, you can if you read this book and you imbibe everything in this book and you do everything in this book and you go down whatever rabbit hole that this book inspires you to go down, you won't need therapy anymore. You'll be done. And you can fire me and I can accomplish whatever my motto at the time was my job is to work myself out of a job. And the thing that was kind of shocking about that is that oh, I don't know, I can't think of a single person that actually went and read the book. And that's what was the beginning of the end of me starting to realize like, oh man, I don't want to be a therapist, because people are so insistent that therapy is about coming and having a place to like just get things off your chest and vent and basically vomit problems on the therapist. So then the therapist, then you leave, then the person leaves feeling better because they've like released everything, and then the therapist like goes home feeling like shit because they're just like they've been sitting in a quagmire of people's trauma and drama all day long. So finally, I decided to like, really just kind of move into a different model where people will, are going to read the books, they're going to do the work. That's not the issue. So in any event, but the most important book that I've ever read is it, and let me also preface this by saying I've read a lot. You know, my mom, I remember I was on the beach one time and my mom was like, "Michael, why don't you just read a like a book for fun? Why don't you just read something that's not about learning about your brain or about psychology or about spirituality?" And I just looked at her and I was just very genuinely like I understood what she was saying. I was like, "Mom, this is my fun. This is passion. This is what excites me. Like this is what makes me happy. This is what I want to be reading." So, a book that I have read multiple times. I've read all of this author's work. I've read the book multiple times. And not only have I read the book, but I listened to the book. So here's a great tip, by the way. In these days, in this day and age, right? We have audiobooks and I have a Kindle, which some people really like the hardcover book, and I do too for certain reasons. But the Kindle is brilliant for me because when I highlight it, all those highlights can be extrapolated, and then I can print out those highlights and I can reread the highlights over and over and over again. So if I really, really, really want to like basically memorize or download a book, I will read it and highlight it, but I will also listen to it because that gets into different neural pathways. And then even up the ante on that even more, I will read it while listening to it. So I'll put the narration speed at time and a half while I'm reading it, and I'll have it go in my ears, and I'll be reading it, and I'll be verbal shadowing. I'll also be reading it silently, but verbal, verbally saying what I'm reading. So that is going in like multiple different pathways in my brain, and then it really, really sinks in. So that's an amazing tip and trick. So without further ado, the favorite book is called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Dr. Joe Dispenza. And that that book to me, what I say to people is like this is like the Bible of change work. And if the Bible gives you bad impressions and whatever, it is the manual of change work, and it brought together so many things that I was thinking about in terms of psychology, spirituality, um, immunology, physics, science. It brings these things together in such a way. I've heard some people, complain that the first chapter on quantum physics is a little bit pseudoscientific, and it's like, but after that, even if that's a stretch for you, even if the first chapter is a stretch for you, after that, it's so practical, it's so down to earth, it's so tried and true. And the biggest concept, the biggest takeaway that I say in a slightly different way than Dr. Joe say, but is this. We say we have this maxim, you are what you eat, right? Everyone's like, yeah, yeah, of course, you are what you eat. I know it. Yeah, you got to eat well, you got to eat healthy. Well, guess what? We eat maybe what, 3, 4, 5 times a day, we drink. Well, that does alter our chemistry, but our state of being is our cells, every single cell in our body is swimming in the neurological, biological, chemical cocktail that is our state of being 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So it is what our cells eat, the neurochemical stew, the neurobiochemical stew, we are eating 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, that has a far greater impact on what we physically eat or what we drink. Now, of course, if you eat poison or something like that, that's going to have a big impact. But for the most of us that eat relatively healthy, and we're relatively well aware about, we're not eating McDonald's and 3 times a day or anything crazy like that. So, but for the fact of the matter is that it is the state of being. Every single time we think a thought, it produces a chemical. That chemical, we call them emotions, but they're chemicals that run their neurology, their biology. They are heart rate, their muscle tone, their organ activity, their blood pressure. We are not disembodied beings. Our state of being is very much embodied. And what we think about consistently, what we feel consistently, literally becomes our flesh. And our cells eat that stew 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so the title of the book is a little bit cheeky. It's a powerful title, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. What the concept is basically that we are addicted to that state of being that we have been. We are addicted. So we are literally addicted on a cellular, physiological level to the emotions that we generally tend to experience, to the thoughts that we tend to think, to the feelings that we tend to have, to the sensations in our body that we tend to have. And that we have like a thermostat that says like, okay, I'm used to things being 68 degrees. And if we go to 69 degrees, it kicks on the air conditioner. If we go to 67 degrees, it kicks on the heat. Well, same with our bodies. If we're used to, being anxious or depressed or angry or stressed, distressed, stressed out. Oh man, I'm so stressed out, right? Well, those are powerful chemicals. Like if we're stressed out, that means we have adrenaline and cortisol running through our body. Those are the types of chemicals that can enable us to lift a car off a child or get away from a tiger that's trying to eat us. They're extremely powerful chemicals, and they're as addictive, if not more addictive than drugs are, right? And so we become literally addicted to our state of being. And this was such a breakthrough. It was such a breakthrough in terms of empathy and compassion for myself, because I was doing so much to try to change. And until I realized that I needed to start approaching this like it was an addiction, and realize that I would go through withdrawal from my and I would have relapses. It's like the model really fits. And these are some of the things that I've extrapolated from the book. And he doesn't say it in exactly the same terms, but it brings into play some of my training and history of being a psychotherapist and working with addictions and working with trauma and things like that. So in any event, that book, I'll say it again, if I used to tell my clients, if you just read this book, if you imbibe everything about this book, if you practice everything that's in this book, if you do the literal process that is described, not just read it and be like, oh, that's cool, that's a good idea. If you actually do it, then you work me out of a job. So sorry, thank you, Dr. Joe. It's a beautiful book. It's an amazing thing. I've read everything under the sun in terms of self-help, psychology, spirituality, etc. People can poo-poo it and say it's too new agey, or it's too much about the law of attraction, or it's too pseudoscience-y. And I say whatever, bullshit. I call bullshit to all of it. It's an absolutely grounded, practical manual for change. And it's things that you need to know if you're going to actually want to octave to a new level of life, because otherwise we call it self-sabotage. And that's really basically when we go back to thinking, feeling, and acting the way we used to, because we're addicted to it. All right, y'all. Here's to no longer self-sabotaging. Here's to raising our life level. Here's to growing beyond belief so that we can unleash our utmost capacity so that we can be the greatest benefit to ourselves, to others, and all. Love you all. Have a beautiful day. Check out the description because I'm offering a free challenge for the Relating Revolution that starts on February 15th. Click the link. You can go to relatingrevolution.com to sign up for that. That is a free 5-day challenge. Drop me a hello, send me a message, all these things. Check out the YouTube channel. There's a link for that in the description as well. And have a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful evening. Love to all. Ciao.